I know we've all heard about trans fats in passing. We've seen 0 grams of trans fat on the products in the supermarket. But do we really know what that means? Do we really know how dangerous they are to our bodies and how they're basically a ticking time bomb just waiting to go off? Today I'd like to talk to you about trans fats. What exactly is a trans fat, how dangerous they are, and different ways that you can avoid them in your diet. So first, let's start by talking about what exactly is trans fat. Trans fats are a type of fat that is created through the process of hydrogenation. Hydrogenation is when oil is heated in the presence of hydrogen. It is what makes a liquid into a solid fat. This is according to the science and lore of the kitchen. Trans fats make our crackers crunchy, they make our french fries crispy, our ice cream and our frostings creamy, and frozen foods taste better. There are also trans fats that occur naturally in animal fats like meats and cheeses, but they're not as bad for us as what has been engineered by humans. So trans fats were actually created as an alternative to butter. Food manufacturers liked trans fat for 3 major reasons. 1, it was cheap. They could produce food at a lower cost using that instead of butter. 2, it had a longer shelf life, so those products could sit on the supermarket shelves for much longer. 3, it tasted better. Because butter tends to go rancid faster, it doesn't always keep that flavor, so they could put trans fat in the foods and it would keep longer and taste better longer. This ingredient is ubiquitous. We can open up our kitchen shelves, pull out any number of products and find it in those foods if you know what to look for. It's in peanut butter, cake mix, frosting, crackers, it's in Cool Whip, even baby food has trans fat in it, surprisingly. So now that I've spoken to you about what exactly is a trans fat, I'd like to talk more about what makes it so dangerous. So, according to Jeffrey Aaron, who is the UC San Francisco professor of medicine, he said that we should be labeling anything that has trans fat in it, just like it's nicotine, because it's that bad for us. In the 1960s and 70s, there was sort of this war on butter. People knew that butter had saturated fat in it and that it led to cholesterol. So they tried to, shy away from butter and use other products that contain trans fat as an alternative, like margarine, for instance. But many doctors today will actually tell you that it's the worst fat that you can eat. Let's see. So normal saturated fats, work by lowering your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. It's what clogs your arteries. And trans fat has a double effect on the body. Not only does it do that and lower that LDL, raise that LDL, but it lowers your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. It's what helps clear the arteries. So not only do you have that cholesterol accumulating much faster in your body, but it's staying there for much longer periods of time. And there's your ticking time bomb. It is a heart attack waiting to happen. So there's a study by the Harvard School of Public Health on trans fats, and that study suggests that eating higher amounts of trans fat actually increases your risk for diabetes. There's another study on trans fats by the Nurses' Health Study that states that eating higher amounts of trans fat leads to a 50% higher risk of heart disease. The National Institute of Health describes heart disease as the #1 killer of men and women today. So that's why this is so dangerous. This is another reason why this is so dangerous, because trans fat is such a major contributor. It's killing off a lot of people today, and so it's really important to get it out of your diet. So now that I've described what trans fat is and why it's dangerous, I'd like to talk about ways or what you can do to avoid trans fat. So when you look at your nutrition facts on any sort of packaged product, you'll see that it lists trans fat. And most of the time it says 0 grams trans fat. So you'd think that you could trust that, right? No. The problem is that most of those labels are actually lying to you. Food manufacturers are not required to list trans fat levels unless they are over 1/2 gram per serving. So not only are they misleading to begin with by saying that they're 0, which makes consumers believe that means nothing, no trans fats, but they are changing their serving sizes to smaller portions just to be able to mask what's really in it. A great example of this is non-stick cooking spray. If you look at the label and look at their serving size, it says 1/3 of a second of a spray. 1/3 of a second spray. That's like, and that's it. I mean, who uses that much cooking spray? People usually use a lot more than that. So what can you do to be more informed? You need to read your ingredient list. If you are reading your ingredient list, you can look for the exact ingredients that people know that have trans fat. There are 2 words that you want to look for. It's hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated. So if you see either of those in your ingredients list, you need to put it down and run away. It's not worth it. It has trans fat in it no matter what the label tells you. When you're outside of the home, there are things that you can do to help as well, because restaurants aren't required to label trans fats either. First, you want to try to avoid fast food if possible. If you can't, try places that use peanut oil instead. It's much healthier. You can also opt for foods like salad, baked potatoes, baked chips, or grilled chicken. Skip the non-dairy creamer that you find at a lot of coffee shops and hotels and things like that. It's loaded with trans fat. Try sticking to regular milk, whole milk, or even half and half. Half and half has high amounts of fat, but it's much more heart healthy and it's not as dangerous as trans fat. If you really like those cooking sprays, you can get an oil mister. You can fill it with monounsaturated fats like olive oil or sunflower seed oil, and you just give it a few pumps and then you can spray it. So that also comes in really handy as well. So today I have talked to you about trans fats, what exactly they are, why they are dangerous, and different ways that you can avoid them. So the reason that this is important is the people here in this room are people who are very important to me. Future father of my children, aunts, brothers and sisters. They're people that I want to see in my life for a very long time. And so I hope that you have heard me out today on some of the risks of trans fats and are willing to kick them to the curb because they're such a deadly ingredient.